Welcome to the Founders Corner, brought to you by OneBridge Accounting. Here's your host, Eli Clark. Hey everyone, Eli Clark here, founder and CEO of OneBridge Accounting and host of the Founders Corner podcast. Today's guest is Dustin Olsen, the owner of Cobalt Graphics. Dustin, very excited to have you. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Eli. I'm excited to be here too, talking about things that we both love. So this will be fun.
Awesome. Super great. Again, tell us a little bit about your professional background and kind of what brought you to this point today. Let's start there.
Yeah, great question. So, as you said, I own Cobalt Graphics. We're a web design agency, development as well. And I went to school. I have a degree, a bachelor's degree in web design and development with emphasis in web business and just helping websites kind of like convert leads or make money. That's kind of what has always interested me. And so since college, I've been working in this space and kind of building my clientele up. And I love it. I love that there's like a creative side to it, there's a technical side to it, and you're solving problems and it's easy to see things happen in real time because of the work that you're doing. And so I really get into it. It's so much fun.
I love that. Yeah, I got my start kind of in the marketing space as well in web design. I remember I had one of my mentors sit me down. He's like, "Hey, you're in charge of our website." Had no clue what I was doing. Just spent all my time in YouTube just trying to figure it out. And this is several years ago, right? Websites have kind of changed a little bit as they do, right? But yeah, super passionate about this subject. I think it's going to be a lot of fun as we dive into it some more. But let's start out. Dustin, when you spend a lot more time looking at websites than I do. I dabble a little bit kind of in the website space, just running our own website at OneBridge. But what are some of the most common mistakes that you see when you're looking at other businesses' websites?
Yeah. It kind of depends on who's running the show, but probably the number one thing that I see the most is messaging on the website. A lot of website owners, they feel like they have to communicate everything all at once and just pile it on because they're afraid that if they don't say something, someone might not purchase or fill out a form. And so they get so caught up in just trying to word vomit so much information that they even forget to provide a call to action of what do you want them to do when they're at your website. And then they turn around and say, yeah, nobody's coming, nobody's buying. Well, have we thought about maybe changing the wording or restructuring the page? Like we can say all that information, we just need to kind of distill it a little bit. But
Right.
that's probably the number one thing that I see people not realize that they're doing, but is actually hurting them in a big way. So
Is that messaging? Is this, you said word vomit, right? It's just everything's on the website.
yep, they can I give you an idea, and this is pretty recent, like to give you an idea how often it happens. Working with a new product that's coming to market, and there's a lot of medical research involved. There's just so many people that have spent a lot of time and money to bring this product to reality, and they insisted they wanted so much of the white papers, the medical research studies, everything kind of upfront, and they're using all this technical medical jargon, and they're I literally told this is verbatim. They're like, we feel that if we don't include it here, they will just miss out entirely. They won't buy if they don't read this white paper on how we arrived at this point. I was like, I don't think they're gonna care. And so just today, actually, we had a big, long conversation about how we could restructure that page and the messaging to be a bit more simplified and to appeal to their actual target market. And suddenly they're like, "Oh, I like how this flows. This makes so much more sense." And I'm like, "Yeah, because we're not trying to douse them with a fire hose on everything that you know about it. We're appealing to kind of the problems they're trying to solve first, and then we'll lead them down a path to learn more. So yeah, it's the number one thing.
When you're thanks for sharing that. I mean, I think I see that on websites a lot where it's just like so much text and you're like, "Oh, I feel like I'm reading a blog post on the homepage," right? Um, what is the process like of trying to reframe the content that you have on the website to make sure it aligns a little bit more with kind of what you're saying? It's a little, maybe a little bit shorter, or it's a little bit more strategic. Like, what does that process look like when you've got an existing website and you want to reframe it in a more strategic way?
Yeah. So there are 9 questions that I will ask the client
Mm,
about their product or their service. And these are questions like, well, one, what is it? And who's your target market? Who are you trying to sell this to? And try to get as much detail out of them as possible. And then we ask questions like, what happens if they don't buy your product or their service? Like, what's at stake for
mm,
them? And then who else does that matter? Is it a spouse? Is it a business partner? Or is it business relationships? Like, who's at stake if they don't buy your product or service? And we just kind of go through that. And then there's questions like, what is the value proposition that you're offering? What makes you different? How do you stand out? And so we get this context. And then, it is 2025. We use AI to synthesize all of this information, and then start outputting it into very specific sections for a web page. And then we work with the clients to refine it for accuracy and tone of voice. Um, but that's generally kind of what we're doing. But we're trying to pull out of the client just who are you trying to talk to, and what's at stake? Because I think they forget some of this, and they're caught up in their own paradigm because they're so close to it. They know so much about it, but they
totally.
forget to take that step back and say, "Oh, some people don't understand this, or they're not as familiar with industry jargon."
Mm,
Um, and so we try to kind of dial it back. Not, I hate to say dumb it down, but that simplification really can help people just understand as fast as possible what it is you're offering. And the faster they understand it, the more likely they're going to stick around or take that next step on your website. Um,
mm.
but if we lose them, if we make them think too hard, they're gone. They're out of there. Uh, and if they leave too quick, Google's going to see that and they're going to say, "Man, you're not worth recommending."
Or it hits your SEO too, right? It's not just the conversions, but it's SEO, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's shocking how connected everything is, and yeah, it,
Yeah. I want to talk about that connection a little bit later. But before we jump into that, do you have any rules of thumb that you follow when it comes to um, bringing things down? Like, do you try to keep it within a certain word count? Do you use like a certain number of ratio of words to graphics, like anything like that that you can that helps you to direct the design and the layout of the website?
uh, yeah, I don't have like a word count unless we're talking like meta titles and meta descriptions that
Right.
search engines have set. But when we're looking at the website, we want to communicate all the right information, but we don't want to necessarily over communicate the same information. And so if things start to get wordy or confusing, then that's when I start to suggest to the client that we rephrase something so that it is either just as impactful with less words, um, or we format it in a way like we use bullet points or other visuals to kind of help someone easily glance over it and quickly understand it. So it's just kind of section by section almost that we're just kind of analyzing this, but we try to give something for your brain and then something for your eyes. It's just
Mm,
kind of visually
yeah.
break things up and help people just kind of flow through the page without feeling like they're looking at a wall of text.
Yeah.
Because that's also a turn off. No matter how short it is or how good it is, It's just like, oh, I don't have time to read this. But if we can visually break it up, kind of gives them some sort of visual interest, it helps give their brain a break as they're
Mm.
scrolling before they read the next section. So that's kind of what we try to do throughout the websites. So
No, that's great. I think there's a lot of um, templates or a lot of content that's out there as well that you can look at as far as like design inspiration or as far as like, oh, this is how long this should be or should be shorter, right? There's a lot of that's kind of out there. Um, Previously, we've talked a little bit about kind of websites being the hub or the online kind of home base, right, for companies. Um, a couple questions related to that I just been thinking about is first question is how can brands effectively use their website to communicate not just their what they offer, but also their personality and their values. Like how do you take it beyond just we offer this and you then present it as this is who we are.
mhm. Yeah. So I think of a website, like it is the hub for the business. The business needs to make money, and however that is, whether they're buying a product or they need leads, like qualified leads coming in, like that should be the website's main purpose. Is communicating that. What problem are we solving? How do we solve it? How can you trust us to solve that problem? All right. There's a lot of different ways that can be done, and it's just going to kind of depend on the space that the business is in that approach. But the about page is where we can dive into who's on the team. This is what we believe in. This is our mission.
Mm.
This is our volunteer efforts that we've done. Like that's the about page, and honestly, that's where we should keep it.
Just keep it there.
You know,
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Hmm.
but there are people who will become fans of the brand, all right? Especially if they're very out there in terms of outreach and connecting with people. And that's where social media is going to come in. If they're a fan of the brand, send them to Facebook or Instagram or TikTok and let them keep up with that personality and engage that way. Um, but if we're going to drive people to the website, we're going to say, hey, sign up for our service or buy our product, right? We can't have distractions of, oh, by the way, check out our latest TikTok video, right? Well, if they hit TikTok, they're gone. Like they're going to see that video that says you should take a break. And so we don't want distractions on the website either. We want to be very focused with how we lead them through that conversion funnel and keep things, siloed almost that don't necessarily serve that end goal. The about page is helpful for those that want to learn more, but it's not going to serve the end goal of converting, and that's what we want. So,
Yeah, that's really interesting because I think there's a lot of brands out there, whether it's service based or it's a product or there's a lot of brands where I do feel like the about section is almost more important than the product or the problem that they're solving, right? So I like that you're saying that those extra things should be on the specific part of the website where if people want to go to the about page, they can find it there. And the place where the community is on social, right? Or it's a newsletter or it's something else like that, right? It's not necessarily the website, right? So that leads into like removing those distractions. I assume helps a ton with conversion, right? And helping increase conversions. What are some other things that you commonly see that kind of detract from the main purpose of the website and decrease conversions?
yeah. So we kind of talk about, right, is they give so much information that people just, their brain shut off, right?
Mhm.
And once that happens, they're gone. Like, there's nothing more you could probably say that they'll pay attention to move forward. The other thing is people use generic buttons to learn more, right? And they're afraid that if they don't learn more, they won't eventually buy, but they lead them down this whole other rabbit hole of learning more without guiding them or letting them know throughout the whole process of this is what I want you to do. And I've often have described this all the action process as going on a date or getting married, right? At the end of at the end of their journey, we want to ask them, will you marry us? Right? That's like the ultimate commitment, right? Will you marry me? And some people are like, no, I'm not ready. You're like, okay, great. How about we go on a date? And that's what I call our secondary call to action. We want to send them down another path to learn related information. And at the same time, we say, okay, now we got on a date. You want to get married? And so it's kind of like a funny thing to think about or to even say, but it's kind of true, right? It's at the end of their journey, it has to be abundantly clear what we want them to do, right? Is it to buy a product? Is it fill out a form? Is it whatever? But if that's not clear, then you're not ever going to convert because all you ever told them to do was to go learn more, not buy now or
Right.
schedule appointment today. So that's one of the things I just see pretty often that people just miss the mark on.
So with that, is that just like um rewording the call to actions to more action type things like buy now or book a call? Like, do you see more conversions with that type of language versus learn more?
Yes. The When I think of button text, I like it to have like an action word with like a descriptor, like
Mm,
discover our product or explore our services. Like because one, that's going to help like those who use screen readers know what they're going to expect if they click on that button, right?
yeah.
Just letting them know what's going to happen. Um, and then same thing with our primary call to action is book an appointment, right? That's what's going to happen, and it also tells them what we want them to do. And so being very intentional, but not overly wordy either with our button text, but it helps them understand what's going to happen next and what we want them to do. And so most of the time, probably half the time, half of our sections on a page, we're going to have two buttons. One that is a bit more it pops. That's our primary one. We're going to see it often. It'll be reworded here and there. And then we'll have a second button. It's a bit more subdued, kind of fades into the rest of everything else, but it's going to be related to the section for them to go learn more, to dive deeper if they're not ready to make that big commitment of getting married. And so
Yeah.
let's go on a date, and we'll just kind of guide them through that process, but it really makes a big difference in helping them just understand the journey we want them to go on.
Yeah, so not beating around the bush and saying, "Hey, we can hang out," right? But instead going to the point and saying, "Hey, let's book an appointment, let's get married, right? Let's do business." Or, "Hey, download this ebook, let's go on a date," right? Kind of different levels of commitment, I guess you could say, right? Depending on where they're at in their customer journey.
Exactly. Yep. And yeah, you have to be very intentional
Mhm.
with that and understanding what that is. And so when I work with business owners, I'm like, what does ROI look like? What does success look like if we redo this website?
Mhm.
Do you want more form fills? Do you want people to call you? Like, what does that look
What's the
like?
objective? Mhm.
Yeah. Because if we're not clear, if we just have no path forward, then a website is just an expense, not an investment.
Mm.
And I want my clients to invest in their website and start to see some sort of ROI come from that because we were intentional with messaging, we were intentional with layout, we're intentional with that funnel,
Right.
rather than just putting all the information out there and hoping somebody will read it all and say, oh, I should buy this. Like no, it's just
The off chance they read everything on the website, right? The off chance. Well, I think that segues really well into, the main audience or the main group of listeners for this is other marketing agencies, right? And I know you primarily service marketing agencies as a white label provider. But for those agencies who are wanting to pitch web design or web development services to their client, what key points or ROI metrics are you um, pitching to those clients so it makes sense and they're saying like, oh, this is an investment and not just something to spend money on? What should they focus on?
yeah. So some of the agency partners that I've worked with where we probably struggle the most, or where these clients will like come and then they leave, right? Which doesn't help the agency at all, right? If they lose business, um, is if they can involve me as a developer, as someone who understands websites, in like a discovery call with their clients, that we can kind of map the path forward with what the client is trying to do, or even better, what the agency says they can help the client do, generate more leads, um, sell more product, whatever that is, right? The website needs to match the ads need to match the
Right.
website, and that whole process needs to just be cohesive. At the same time, we want to just make sure that we're we're taking into account any compromises or concessions we have to make. Some clients dream really big, and we have to like rein it in for one reason or another, right? It's either just not possible or their budget doesn't allow it. Um, but having someone who can speak to the client and speak to their wish list in a discovery call will go so far. But instead, what I see agencies are doing is they'll hire someone offshore because it's cost effective, and then the agency is trying to field these questions from the clients about what the website could do or can't do, but they're not really sure because it's not their specialty, it's not their expertise. They're good at Google Ads or Facebook ads, right? That's their specialty. They're not good at websites. They just know enough to maybe have a conversation, and then they bid on a project and they lose their shirt on it. Why? Because the developer wasn't part of that conversation and spends all this extra time just to please the client, when if we just had a conversation in the beginning, we probably could have, one, bid the project more accurately and set expectations from the get-go. And those are things I work with my current agency partners on, is helping them recognize all of that and be a part of those conversations. And the outcome is just so much better. And it's more aligned with what the client was hoping for. Um, and beyond that, if they're investing in marketing, paid ads, like let's get a website that matches all of that. And we can close more deals and have a bigger pipeline because everything just is more cohesive. Like we were saying earlier, everything's connected.
Yeah.
And as soon as we disjoint some of that is when we have problems. And I've seen so many agencies drop web services because of the problems it causes, which is unfortunate. If there's any agency out there that could, be a full service, it's marketing, like end to end, just offer it all. But I think they have to have the right people in place to help with that. So,
Right. The right partners, the right systems. It needs to make sense, right? To boil down kind of what you're saying, the ads need to match the website, which needs to match the objective, let's say more conversions or education or whatever, and more form fills, right? Whatever that objective is, right? That's the key point that you need to communicate to the client's client or to the end user, right? Whoever is going to be using the website in the end, that's what is most important to them, is whatever that objective is, right? And then you just reverse engineer it, if I'm understanding correctly, to this is how the website needs to look, and then therefore that's how the ads need to look, right? If you're doing paid ads, right?
yeah.
How do you you mentioned this a little bit, but how do you scope and price web projects without decreasing your profits too much? I feel like a lot of scope creep is very, very, very common in web design.
Yep. So a lot is going to happen in the discovery call with the client, and also taking a look at their current site too. But at the very beginning, I try really hard to be very clear about the size of the website and the features that they want on it. Right? If we're going to do an e-commerce website, for example, that has 10,000 products on it, and we need it has subscriptions and memberships and all that, like that's a lot of moving parts, right? That takes a lot of time. And so, but understanding that up front and working through what that end goal should be, then we can say, great, this is the size of your site. This is the extra effort that's going to go into X, Y, and Z. Here's an estimate on time for the whole project. And then it's up to me to make sure that we stay within those guardrails, right?
Mhm.
If they come back and say, "Oh, in addition to that, we want to do digital downloads," like,
Yeah.
okay, we could work that in. How is this going to work? Digital downloads are different for everyone. What is the experience you're expecting? Great. Now we probably will need to look at an additional cost because this is where we're at on our time for the project so far. Um, and no one's ever really kind of pushed back. They understand and respect that we had a prior conversation about what to expect and what would be included. It's those that sold the website and they just kind of just let the client walk over them. They're trying to keep the client happy because they're paying a lot of money on Google Ads or something. And so they just like, yeah, we'll just toss it in. The number of times I've heard an agency firms that we'll pay for that. I was like, why? Why are you taking away from your own margins to satisfy a client? Like that doesn't make sense to me. When we could have just had a better conversation at the beginning and figured it out together, but instead they take it out of their own paycheck. Just
So
to
it
make
really starts in the beginning with that discovery call, and then in the middle during the project, maintaining the expectations of like, "Hey, this is what we agreed on. We can do what you're or, if you can, we can do what you're asking for, but there's gonna be additional, expenses involved," right? Does that fit what's in your budget, right? Yes or no? And then, kinda, I guess, 2 parts to that, right?
Yep. Yeah, and that's another like big part, like the budget, right?
Mhm.
Asking clients, have you thought about a price for this? And some they're like, no, I don't really know what to expect. Like I hear that one a lot, or they want to pay next to nothing. And you're like, well, if that's what you want to pay, then this is all we can do for you.
Right.
Um, and yeah, that's also really tough. Uh, working within a budget sometimes. Not to say that we're like, quoting tens of thousands of dollars for simple websites. Um, but some people dream really big,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
like just um with people the number of times I've also heard, can we build something like Tesla.com or Apple.com? You're like, okay, hold on. Like, do you understand the amount of manpower that's gone into either of those websites?
Right.
Like, they cost millions of dollars a year to run. So, is your budget that big? Let's
Yeah.
talk about
They're
that.
like, "We can do it if you got the budget," right? Yeah.
Yeah, if you got the budget, let's do it.
We'll make it happen, right?
Yeah. So,
One thing I often hear from agencies that are doing web design is kind of these one-off projects, right? And there's not this ongoing relationship or this ongoing retainer. How can you transition maybe if you've closed business on a website design project, how do you transition that into a retainer of sorts?
yeah. So, I to my agency partners and to other business owners, they're busy with running their own business, right? The last thing that they'd probably want to do is learn website jargon so they can talk to their hosting support when things go wrong, and then they feel like half a day was sunk in just talking to tech support, trying to one understand the problem and two learn enough to even know what to fix, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so I I sell a website care package. It's like, hey, we'll host it, we'll take care of it, we'll do a lot of the proactive stuff to look after your website property so that you don't have to. Focus on what you're good at, focus on your business, grow your business. And if something goes wrong, just reach out to us. We would be the ones you'd want to reach out to anyway. And so let us do it and you don't have to worry about it. And so by having that month to month agreement of we're hosting your site, we're taking care of it, we're going to send you a report every month of what happened on your website from a maintenance perspective. It one keeps the agency top of mind, lets them know that we're taking care of it. And when they do have other needs, like they want to add another page or change something on their website, well, we do, well, at least from my philosophy, we make everything possible that if a client wants to go in and make their own updates, they can. But 90% of the time, they just send us the request, no matter how simple it is. It is something they could do, but because we've built that trust that we're just going to take care of them, then we just have an ongoing relationship, which does a lot, and it keeps. I think it helps the agency.
Additional work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think it helps
Well,
the agency with that. We might pause ad campaigns for whatever reason. We might do whatever, but maintaining them as a client and having a web care package where they can make just a little bit of revenue every month, like, why not? You know?
yeah. Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Well,
So,
Dustin, as we're jumping into kind of the final few minutes, I'd like to do a lightning round with you. If that's okay. So just ask a couple quick questions, and just the first things that come to your mind. So, what is one underrated element that you think every website should have?
mm, well, better content.
Better content.
Uh,
Okay, like blog
yeah.
posts, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep. Blog posts. Yep. Yep.
awesome. Okay.
Underrated for sure.
Oh, what's your go-to CMS or platform for most projects?
WordPress with Divi. Yep.
What?
Uh,
Okay.
yep. Those two combined, you can standardize so much, and you can just, yeah, you can do so much with just
Cool.
those two things. So
What's the best way to speed up a slow website?
images are going to be the number one thing, especially if they're inexperienced. They just upload their raw files or whatever. But images are going to be your number one thing to look at. So,
What's the first thing you're checking when you're doing an audit of a client's website? What's the first thing you look at?
if I can get access to the back end, I'm going to see what they've concocted to even get it to where it's at today. Uh, just I don't want any surprises. What skeletons are in the closet.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, last one. What is a quick win that people can implement to improve conversions on a website?
Like we've been talking, what are your call to actions, and are you driving them there? So that's button text in the right places, and having compelling titles that cause people to stop and say, "Oh, what is this? What problems are you solving for me?"
Mhm.
And how are you the solution for me? So if I could offer one pro tip to anyone on that note, is go ask your previous customers why they purchased from you or why they did anything, and take notes. Use verbatim what they said, because they're your target market. Use their words on your website, and then drive them through your conversion path to fill out forms or buy product. Like, if you can just pull the words out of their head, they're going to say, "Wow, these people really get me." And
Yeah,
once they have that emotional connection, they're like, "Man, they really understand my problem." They will be a customer for life. But
love
that is one thing we all miss. So,
I love that. Well, Dustin, a last question for you, and this is something I like to ask everybody, just because the marketing industry is changing so fast and so rapidly, especially with AI and everything else that's going on and technology and things. But what do you see as trends or things that people need to watch out for in web design or in the marketing space in the next 3 to 5 years?
yeah, obviously AI is replacing a lot of time spent in research and making recommendations. But where do they get that information from? It's from your website, right?
Hmm.
And having a fully fledged website that's thoughtful, that answers questions, that uses language that your target market uses, will likely increase the AI recommending your website. Right? And like, you can't ignore it. It's going to be here. It's already here. Um, so yeah, I think we just got to dive in and learn the new rules of the game. But your website is going to be pivotal. It's going to be key, and yeah, just got to be ready for it.
There we go. Dustin, if people want to get a hold of you, where can they find you?
Yeah, come on over to cobalt.graphics. There's no .com, but cobalt.graphics, and you can check out what we're offering and even schedule a call with me. We can chat more about your website needs.
Awesome. Well, Dustin, thanks again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Eli. This was awesome.
Thank you for joining us in this episode of The Founders Corner, the podcast series for marketing firms and agencies looking to learn and level up their business. You can check out more podcasts and other content from OneBridge Accounting by following the links in the show notes. At OneBridge Accounting, we're all about helping marketing and creative firms organize their finances, maximize their profits, save cash, and automate their accounting and finance functions. Check out our other resources and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.